In a short stretch of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 18, the British Invasion of New York City. Today we're talking to Tony Ward and Laurence Hill. This one's going to be a hoot, but I got to say, as the ugly American, I feel outnumbered again.
Well, you're lucky James McHugh couldn't join us.
I know. We'd have had
you'd be completely outnumbered with the Brits, right?
We probably would.
Hopefully he's going to tune in and maybe throw some comments. I'm going to text him actually while we're doing this.
Okay, that's
how
good.
are you, my friend? Friday, happy Friday, Good Friday, Good Friday.
Oh, Good Friday to you, sir.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
are you going to try and take half a day off at least or something? Or
no, I don't.
Wait, you don't work for a living. What am I saying?
I don't. Every day is a play day for me.
You have a startup. What am I talking about?
we don't work at a startup. I'm my own boss.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. If you're watching this, if you want to see past episodes, you're like, oh my God, this is internet history being captured here. If you want to go watch all the early episodes, go to youshoulda.com. You can see upcoming guests. It's super exciting. If you're watching and want to heckle, we strongly encourage that. You can post comments here. Ritesh is watching those, so we'll pull you up. And as always, Ritesh and I want to be influencers so bad. We're close. Yeah, we're close. So
we're desperate.
Go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. If you don't do that, we're not real people.
Exactly.
So anyway, I think it is time that we bring these gentlemen on. What do you think, sir?
I think so. These two guys are going to bring some really interesting stories because they were part of the online magic crew. Oh, look.
Agency.com hats. That's
ready?
Wow, look at this.
This is solid. This is solid.
All right, I was worried that Tony was going to show a tattoo.
No.
Look at that.
There we go.
There you go. Right?
Where'd you get? I don't remember hats. Well, why the hell didn't I get a hat? What's wrong with me?
Probably because Tony stole yours off your desk.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
You were working on your COVID haircut, Ritesh.
Yeah, there you go. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome
to the
Thank
show.
You. Yes, cool.
It's good to see you guys. Where are you guys? You're in Richmond, right, Tony and Laurence? Are you sitting in Richmond?
Richmond, Virginia, on a brisk Friday morning. I've got to tell you, it's not quite as warm as it has been. If our voice starts to quiver or we run inside, it's because we had to run to the bathroom because it's so freaking cold out here.
All right. It's good.
Richmond's on the way to Charlotte, so this worked out perfectly.
Listen, you Brits can't complain about it being chilly. You've become American.
Remember, we left a long time ago for a reason.
That's right. You are our first. This is our first non-virtual pairing. It's really exciting that you figured out how to make this happen. And Tony, you're headed down to North Carolina to go look at race cars, as we understand.
That is right. My son and I are big NASCAR fans. So yes, the Brit abroad is now a NASCAR fan and likes country music. I don't think I'll be allowed to go home.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. And I'm getting into F1. So what next? I watch soccer?
I don't know. Maybe I'll run.
You'll have to start watching cricket, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Ritesh, you used to live up there near Vienna. So there's a big cricket league around DC.
Yeah,
there really is.
Yeah, it's big. Very big. Superb.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys. Welcome. Kyle, why don't we kick it off with these fine young gentlemen?
Yeah. So why don't you just each sort of give us a quick little, 30 seconds on what you're doing today, and then we'll dive in and sort of dial up the Wayback Machine.
So for me, I'm working at the National Student Clearinghouse now. Basically, we deal with capturing all the enrollment and degree data from across the country for our colleges and universities. And then the primary aim was use it for financial aid. But now we've got so much data over 20-something years, we can supply all sorts of services back to schools, colleges, and now the workforce. So we no longer say student, we say learner, because all of us are capturing more qualifications as we get on in the workforce. So it's not a student anymore, it's a learner. So I look after an app dev team. It's fun.
Great.
Awesome. Lawrence.
Yeah, well, I've been working at CarMax for the last year and a little bit, right? So I'm managing the operations department for Salesforce. It's a lot of users. We have like 20,000 end users with Salesforce. So basically keeping the lights on, because as you can imagine, COVID has just changed everything, right? Our entire business model is not about everyone rushing into a store and test driving a car and driving home in a car. It's all online now. And so it's changed everything. We spent the last year having to adapt to that, and it's kept us busy, but damn, it's fun.
Wow.
So wait, you left Capital One, because the last time I came to visit, you were working at Capital One, right?
Yeah. After 18 years of traveling out to the distant counties from Richmond to work at Capital One, I eventually decided it was time for a new job. I had an office that was right within walking distance of my home, and they moved me to the office across the street from Capital One. That's what happened with CarMax. I couldn't believe it. And so I started driving, and I literally passed Capital One every day in my new job. And then COVID struck and changed everything. So.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so where we like to start here is, as we say at the beginning, doesn't really matter who goes first. I'd love for you to just sort of, let us know, how did you discover the internet? Did you have a big aha moment? Like what were you doing before? What led you to it? What got you into it that led to, us ending up working together?
You can go first.
All right. So it all begun with CompuServe. And I was working actually, strange enough, I was working in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they gave me a laptop. And it was a new laptop and had this icon for CompuServe that I clicked on. And there it begun. I'm like, this is interesting, right? So it was pretty basic, mostly chat rooms. But all of a sudden I realized there was a bigger world out there, and I could talk to people anywhere, and I didn't have to get on a phone or send faxes. I was hooked.
Wow.
So that's really how my introduction to the internet happened. And what about you, Tony? What was your first time?
Oh, was it a
porn site by any chance, Tony?
Pardon?
Was it a porn site?
It was a blonde.
No, seriously.
I don't think I chose the internet. The internet chose me.
Oh,
because it was a blonde. There was a lady, fell in love with her and was going to come over and move over, and she dumped me before I got here. But I got a job at Online Magic. I'd chosen to stop working at NCR and make the move to America. So it wasn't. I really wasn't aiming for the internet. I was aiming for America, and then landed in New York and went, "Ooh, this is Planet Zog. It's got nothing to do with America." So,
that's true.
And I should probably lead on from there, because how did I end up at agency.com? Well, I didn't. I was acquired.
Oh.
So I landed a job with Tony, having worked in banks, in commercial banking, and doing very boring letters of credit, financial applications. I got fired by the Israeli boss, quite honestly, after working in New York. I went looking for a job, and Tony had mentioned Online Magic. And so in those days, Online Magic and agency were separate companies, and they were both within 665 Broadway, the same building, right?
It was 65, but we were, okay.
Right. I went and I interviewed at both agency and Online Magic, and I got a job offer from both. And I turned down agency. And I took the Online Magic job. And I think it was about a week later that the acquisition happened. So everyone got their own way.
So did you two know each other before then? Before
we go back to.
We don't have long enough for that, Tony.
1987, a graduate intake for NCR. So we worked together.
Oh, I didn't know that piece.
Well, I mean, this closeness.
Yeah.
When we worked in Canada together, which was pre-agency, they thought we were gay.
Well, I don't know if they thought, or maybe we're still thinking.
Wait.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
We did our best job.
Best to put that one on.
So Tony gets the job at Online Magic, and then you arrive, Laurence, and you start working there. Was it in the tech? Was there like a tech team or something that you guys started working in?
So when I came over, it's a bit like the Leeds FA Cup '73 team. I can remember there was Andy, there was Denai, there was Deborah, there was John and John, Ken, Joe, me, and I'm missing someone at Online Magic. And the problem we had at Online Magic was we had to stop hiring the Brits in, and they said you've got to have 50% American. So we got James over, and then Laurence was looking for a job as well. So we went, I know somebody. He's in New York.
Yeah,
you'd lived in New York a couple of years before me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Laurence was here before me.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now you're both working at Online Magic, tooling away, and then within a few weeks, you get months? How much was it before you got acquired into agency.com?
For me, it was 1 year. It was exactly.
It was a year. Okay.
May '97, and we became agency, I think, in May '98.
Oh, wow.
And was Ritesh there when you guys?
No,
not even. Because Laurence, you definitely would have gone to agency.com if Ritesh had interviewed you, right?
I mean, agency got what agency wanted. I mean, they wanted Ritesh, they got him, right? They wanted me, they got me.
Right, that's right. He's not going to take a job with another company.
Online Magic just had a better way about the name, Online Magic. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I don't.
So now you're required, and because I remember joining and working upstairs, and then somebody said, "Have you met the guys downstairs?" I'm like, "What downstairs?" They're like, "Yeah, we have these guys downstairs." And I remember walking out into an area. There was a big Welsh dragon up on the wall, I think, and a Union Jack, and I think there was you, Laurence, Tony. There was McHugh was down there with you guys.
Yeah, there was a line of four of us, and there was a little wall as you walked in, and and James put up the sign, "You're entering the British Isles." It was James, me, Laurence, and then Patty Cullen. And although she's American, she was Irish American, so we had the set.
And was Tom down there with you guys as well?
I don't remember how much Tom. I don't think Tom stayed around much longer after we were acquired.
Yeah. Because he went off and did that Polish software startup or something.
Yeah. But I do have a funny story about Tom when it's appropriate. So
okay,
well, it's appropriate.
It's appropriate now.
Right. So I remember sitting there in one of those late night sessions trying to get something worked out to be delivered. And Tom was always like one of those real late people. He was always up. He had nothing better to do. Some of us would go drinking, but Tom would generally just develop software. And or was it? Actually, it may not have been Tom. It was Gareth.
Oh, I forgot Gareth.
Gareth, the Irish one.
Yes. And Gareth, it was Gareth and Tom were the late nighters. Gareth was sitting there developing one night, and all of a sudden we got a text through ICQ. ICQ is what we used to message in those days.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm at my keyboard, and there's a mouse looking at me." Because he would have his dinner all over his desk every day. I mean, you can just imagine what sort of situation we had. So this mouse turns up, and we never caught it. Well, eventually we found out where the mouse lived. It had buried inside his computer where it was nice and nested inside his PC.
No way.
So when he sent us the message about the mouse, we're going, "Of course you got a mouse. You got a PC." We went, "No, a real one." We still don't know how the mouse got in. As Laurence said, we took the thing apart and there was the mouse net in the PC.
Yeah.
And we go, "How did it get in?"
Amazing. So you guys are all down there, and I think there was a left-hand space if I remember correctly. No, maybe not. It was just you guys, I think, right?
It was very open plan after the remodel, so everybody could see everybody. But honestly, I don't remember who was next to us.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was the atmosphere like? Once the acquisition happened, and because that 97, I mean, we were starting to grow pretty quickly at that point. What was it like working there? Like, talk about all of that, work or play.
Play. There was a lot of play. So, but I mean, compared to now, it felt so relaxed, because I remember the hours were like 10 till 7.
Right.
Which in New York was fine. So you had a lazy get up, you had lunch on your doorstep.
Yep.
And it was anybody who could say, let's go to lunch, and you just walk out, go to lunch. Sometimes we didn't come back, but that was a different story. But I found it very relaxed compared to life now.
Yeah. I do remember the change, because as we grew so quickly, the projects that we worked on, we were acquiring bigger and bigger customers. I mean, they were getting bigger and bigger, and the asks were bigger. So all of a sudden, in the past, you had a lot of very technical people building stuff that was functional. And then all of a sudden, there was a lot more creativity brought into it. And somehow we had to meld the creative and the technical features and make them work together. And I think banging heads together of creative people and the tech heads, right, that was fun. But as we got bigger and bigger, it became more and more challenging. And working through that was immense. So
you lead me to a story, so I'm going to keep going on that one.
Yeah.
I remember, because I'd worked as online manager. I came into agency in corporate IT, and then when Ritesh, you were here, we came up with the idea we need to set up a QA department, quality department. So Doug Danielson came in, and we wanted to put in process. So Doug and I started interviewing everybody, and we got to the creatives and said, so what's your process? And they said, we don't have a process. We can't be bound. I mean, Joe Zanstra, I can hear him in my ear. I can't be creative like that. It may be 2 a.m. in the morning when I'm creative. But anyway, we sat down and said, so what's your process? And they said, we don't have one. So I said, well, what do you start with? And they said, well, we start here. How do you know when you're finished? Well, we finish here. And what do you do after you just started? Well, I do this. And we just kept on going step by step.
Yeah.
And went, so you do have a process. Oh, maybe I do. but Carl, you were on the creative side, so you should know it.
Yeah. It's amazing, because you remember, look, when we started to get more IAs involved, because we had to start putting some architecture together, because we couldn't just go from, hey, can you put this page together, and hey, this thing doesn't need this way, can you move it this way? And then everything else broke, right? And people go, well, why doesn't this work now? So it was really amazing when we started building that whole IA UX department.
And then instead of trying to develop everything by hand from scratch, we started looking at application servers. So we would have these beautiful creative designs, and then we'd have application servers that would basically give you templates. And we would fight, because we could never make it do what the beautiful creative designs were supposed to look like, but we could give great functionality. And that went on for a long time, right?
Long time.
We go with these products. What Blue something? I forget what the name of it was.
Blue Martini, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Yes,
Blue Martini?
Blue Martini was one of them.
Wasn't Chris Stetson the poster child for Blue Martini for a while, or somebody was? Remember, they used to feature Chris on all their ads.
Oh, did they?
I think it was Blue Martini, but there was Interwoven, and there was Vignette as Logic was the app server, I think. Tim,
did you end up sitting? Because I know we did cross-functional teams, and we experimented all sorts of different ways to mix and match people. Did you guys? Were you ended up, sort of co-located with the creatives at some point, or were you always off, doing technical stuff?
I was off just with it was just me, Mia, and
Mia Hand. That's right.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not
sure.
You
were with the teams, yeah?
Well, I was with the teams, and I was managing the technical teams, but I'm not sure whether we were truly co-located, because I think everyone we go through this period of negotiation, and then everyone run to their own corners when they'd had enough. It'd be like the creative director would say, "I want this," and we say, "Well, you can have this." No, I need this. Well, how about this? And this will go round and around and around, right, until everyone's worn out, and then they go to the pub.
He used to drive the PMs nuts, because timelines. I remember, I think it was Heather or Dina. They just, I can't do this anymore, and threw all this stuff in the air, right? And they're like, this is ridiculous. It was absolutely amazing.
That was one of the things, because that comes back as well when we used to do the project management meetings, and there'd be 40-something project managers.
Yeah.
I mean, that tells you something in the fact, because we shouldn't have needed 40-something project managers. But I think they were also sort of creative directors, stroke project managers.
Yeah.
And liaison. But yeah, I remember Heather. She scared me.
Who?
Heather.
I think Eric Walensky used to call him Mlad the Impaler. I remember joining us. Have you met Mlad the Impaler yet? She's in the office next to you. I'm like, pardon, who?
Yes.
But yeah, I think, those were really producers. I think if you talk to Barry Goldberg, I remember when he first came on, and they'd be like, that's not project management. They're just managing a timeline. Right. So it was quite interesting. Quite interesting. Who else do you remember on those, those? I can't remember Patty Cullen being down with you guys. That's the big one for me.
I'm not sure how long, because it's the time zone. I mean, it was so fast. I mean, 98, and then the bubble really burst in 2001. So, 2000.
How long were you guys at 665 before we moved to 20 Exchange?
I think we were only there a year.
Yeah.
It was
99 we moved,
long, right?
Yeah, 99 we moved to 20 Exchange, I think.
Because 665, was it 65 or 6? Because it had all three of us. It had Agency, Spiral, and Online Magic.
That's right.
We got the Mitch Goldens come down, and
it's such a great location. I mean, it was Silicon Alley, right? I mean, that was what it was all about. But it also had all of the clothes stores right nearby. So if you never made it home that night, you could actually just run in there and grab a new outfit.
Grab a shirt.
Or you could go to Dwayne Reed and get your toothpaste in the morning.
Yeah, I think we need to hear a story or two about how Laurence and Tony ended up, sleeping in the office most of the time.
It wasn't most of the time.
No.
Well, I think we'd moved out to Maplewood, because this is part of the gayness as well, because we lived together. We moved out to
Maplewood, New Jersey.
We moved out to, I think there's the Cardassians, there's the Kahns, there's the Sussexes. We were amongst the Marzanos.
Yeah, there you go.
Family, but crazy as all hell. But so we moved out there, which meant we had a last train home, which was like 1:45.
It was very late.
Oh.
It was never quite late enough.
No, it was never quite late enough, and sometimes we'd miss it. And then I got a nickname of being "Got a Couch," because I'd phone somebody at stupid o'clock and go, "Got a couch, please."
Very good couch surfer in those days.
Except for one, Bernadette. She didn't have a couch, so it was a floor that night. That was strange.
Yeah, I wasn't so much into couches. I would actually try to get home. And so there were generally two ways that the 1:45 train could work out. One is that I would get it, and I would make it on my 30-minute journey to Maplewood, New Jersey, and I would get home and everything would be good. The other way was when I would fall asleep on the train and would wake up not knowing how many stops past I was. And generally it was like 2 or 3. And there are many a times where I actually walked back. I was stopped by every local township, by the local cop in every township, and they'd ask what I was doing. I'd have a computer bag over my shoulder, and I'd be like following the rail tracks as close as I possibly could. And I would ask them for could I have a ride? And they go, no, you can't.
No.
They say, well, drive me out of the neighborhood. They would never do that.
Exactly.
So I would walk from Short Hills down to whatever the next place was, and each local township had its own cops, and every one of them would stop me. And like no one would give me a ride home. So,
you should have had a knife with you. They would have given you a ride out of town fairly quickly, Rambo.
But it was more than once.
It was more than once.
What about the West Side bench?
Well, so the other side is if I did miss the train, and I didn't have a couch to go to, it was usually so late in the morning that I would start work the next day anyway. And I'm like, why would I even bother getting a taxi all the way to New Jersey? By the time I get there, I got to come back again. So I learned that I could just like hang out in the office, and I would like literally sleep under my desk, get up early in the morning, go and buy a new set of clothes. I had the key to the shower that was in the building, so I could use the shower.
How'd you get that?
And so, yeah.
How'd you get the key?
I never had a couch, but I did have a key to a shower. And that worked out pretty well. I only got caught about twice in the office where people came in early. So
there was one time. What floor was the lounge? We used to have a lounge. I can't remember which floor. Anyway,
I can't remember what floor it was on.
What, at 20 Exchange?
I think.
No, at 666.
No, I think it was still 665. There was a lounge. I think it was the 5th floor. Anyway,
Yeah, I think it was the
so
fifth floor.
one night we went, well, let's just go back and sleep in the lounge. And then I remember about 8 o'clock hearing footsteps. So I start throwing things at Laurence. We better get up. They're coming to work. But I think it's just dawned on me that before we worked in New York, when we worked in Southend together back home, he didn't have a home. So he'd have his tent hanging up in his room all through the week, drying out. I think he used to sleep in his tent in the room.
that is a whole different story.
Yes,
But the good news was that they would actually sometimes give me the room with a hot tub if they had no wedding parties, and it was great for doing laundry. So until the detergent clogged it up, and then they wouldn't let me have it after that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So now you're here, you say, I have to say, there were many times we played hard and we really partied hard as well. I mean, we really had.
Well, I mean, I think we were saying the other night, one of them was at your house.
Yeah.
And you were gracious enough to let my mum come along. And if you're watching, Mum, hi.
Yeah. Hi, Tony's mum. And remember, he left you with us.
Yes.
And Mum didn't want to go home, and I went, if Ritesh is good with it, I'm good. See ya. Bye. And walked away.
And that's exactly what he did. He left, and she hung out with us. She stayed overnight. You came back 2 days later, I think.
Okay, Mom, time to go.
Well, it wasn't even that. 2 days. Did I leave my mum here?
You found me.
It's like, she's been with us for a couple of days, mate. But
because the great story with Mum was she overstayed her welcome twice, and sadly one of them was 9/11, so we won't go into that.
Yeah.
But the first one was in Maplewood. The tree roots would come up, and the cobbles, the paving stones were up and trippable. So she went down to the off license to get a bottle of JD to take home for a friend. But while she was walking back, she tripped and dropped it. It smashed in the brown bag, and she cut her hand. She called me at the office, and I went, "All right, I'll come home." Don't have to come home. Anyway, long story short, we get to the hospital, and it's still bleeding, but she lifted her arm up, and she went, "Ouch." So I said, "Doctor, could you just check what's going on when she lifts her arm up?" And so he did, and he lifted her arm up and said, "Does this hurt?" And she went, "No!" And I went, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I think she might have broken a rib." And my answer was, "She can still fly home tonight, can't she?" She stayed another 3 days.
There you go.
I love you, Mum.
Yeah. So
Just glad you're in the chat.
what were some of the projects that you worked on back then that you remember, good, bad, or indifferent? Like, what were some of the things you were working on? Like, that was a big deal, or it was one of those things where you did smash creative and tech together.
Oh, I can't believe we actually pulled that one off.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I was trying to work out whether this was online magic or agency, but I remember working on Uncle Ben's Rice, where we had, that was an amazing thing. I got so hungry because all we do is like put hundreds of recipes into this database that we built, and I'd be like salivating as I was like reading through these recipes. But that was a good one. I think as agency started to get more grand, though, things got bigger and bigger.
You're big.
I mean, I remember like Unilever. Yeah, Unilever was a big one there.
Right.
These things went on, and ultimately, I will tell you that the reason that I ended up in Richmond, Virginia, after 9/11, is because we were building a website for Sirius Satellite Radio, if you remember that.
Yep.
And
very well.
And it was a company in Richmond that was building the back-end billing system, and agency was building the front end of it. And it was one of these things where Sirius had deliberately brought two different companies in. They didn't want to put all their eggs in one basket. And so we would fight. We would fight between the company in Richmond that was doing the back end and agency in New York, always fighting on that one. But it was a really good website that got put together. Ultimately, when basically after 9/11, when everything wound down very, very quickly and I went looking for a job, I actually went back to that company in Richmond and said, do you have a job for me? So I actually went to the competitor to finish off what had been started at agency. Yeah.
Wow. What was the name of the company?
Yeah, what were they called?
Yeah.
Well,
I remember the name.
They only lasted a year. The company was called Central Lines, but they actually had a different name beforehand. And it was a bunch of guys that literally had taken their severance packages from a cable company, and like 3 or 4 guys had started this company up. They really put all their eggs in the Sirius satellite basket. And then when Sirius pulled the plug on them, that was the end of the company.
Yeah. That's tough. That Sirius project was amazing because
it was serious.
It was serious. Online radio, billing system.
Did we do the logo? Did we do the branding for them?
Branding.
What about the dog? Does anyone remember what went into the dog? Who takes the credit for inventing the Sirius dog?
I thought it was Fanny. Wasn't it Fanny? Was it Fanny or somebody?
I don't remember.
Well, it was the dog of the guy's wife, I think, who used to come visit now. And she used to bring the dog with him. Now, I could be completely making this up. Who knows? So I think what we're going to have to do is hunt down Bill Bloom. I think he ran it was his team, right? Were you on Bill Bloom's team when you were doing this stuff? Or was it? Yeah. So I think Bill will remember. We'll have to get to Bill Bloom and find out what's going on. Bill, if you're watching, put it in the comments. If not, we're going to come find you. But I think, I remember David Bortnicek was on that with you guys as well, I think, right? Yeah. And I remember saying, this is never going to happen. This is never going to happen. We have to take a stream of songs, a stream from a database of the artists, put it together, and then I have to build a music player for the internet? Are you guys nuts? This is never going to work. I remember this vividly, having this conversation with him today.
Yeah. The things we take for granted these days is ridiculous.
Right.
The projects I worked on it was all back end. It was boring stuff because I was in corporate IT. So if you remember the days of Elite and putting the management system in, finance management system, I think one of my life lessons happened during that project, and it was Chan, and it was about being ready for a meeting. So we walked in, and there was lots of decisions to be made, and big meeting. What was the CFO's name? Sorry, I've lost your name.
Ken.
Ken
Trush.
Ken was there, Paul was there, Chan was there, and we basically said, it was said, we got these options, Chan. And Chan went, I'm not here to do your work for you or make your decisions. I'm here to get a recommendation from you. This meeting's over. And he walked out. And I went, wow.
Oh, no.
Brilliant.
No, don't tell
this.
Do you do that in your meetings now yourself?
Yes.
Oh.
Not quite like that. It's tough to do on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I remember Chan. The sort of the thing that he would say over and over again that was when you walk into my office, there's a giant pile of rocks on my desk. And when you walk into my office, you either put a rock on the pile or you take one off. You better fucking take one off.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I don't know. So then it was working with you, Ritesh, to put project management in place and quality.
Yeah.
So sort of trying to put some process in place.
Yeah.
And then we brought in QA and, browser compatibility testing and brought in, can't remember the name of the external company to do our QA.
Right. Oh, I can't remember. Bricks, right? Was it?
I can't remember. They were up in Boston. I think the biggest thing that happened was that Mia came up and said, I want to be your editorial quality control. And I went, wow, okay. She said, give me any presentation you like and I will find all the problems with it. And we could review documents 4 or 5 times. And obviously it's fairly important to the internet because it's content.
Yeah.
People would review it and you think, we've all reviewed it. And then she would redline the whole page. It was remarkable just what quality brought
Do you
to
remember
content
you remember the name of the content management systems we'd use?
back then.
Some of these things. Yeah, we had a few. Yeah, oh yeah.
It was, what was it? The first one was Vignette, I think, right?
Vignette.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
yes.
that was one of them.
Vignette. And then the Boston office came up with Interwoven. They were a big
Right,
Interwoven.
I remember
I
Interwoven.
remember. And that sort of became the big thing for a while.
Yeah.
There was something Plum. It was a Microsoft one. That was the first time we did something with Microsoft. But I remember the religions were, New York was Java and Sun and Unix, and Boston was all Microsoft. You know,
All right,
they were very big Microsoft guys up there. So, and then Woodbridge was a hybrid. You know, Woodbridge
Well,
didn't.
and then Dallas had a whole nother Dallas.
Oh yeah, that's right. With Heidi Kaiser and those teams.
Yeah.
That's right. They did all the BA work, didn't they? British Airways work was done in Dallas as well.
Yeah,
Well, that was agency, wasn't it?
Yeah.
yeah. But it was. I mean, they were part of Eagle River, but yeah, that became. Yeah,
Eagle River.
because Eagle River was all project management. You know, we were all creative. You know, Online Magic was Brits. Eagle River was
Hilarity.
and these were just like trains coming together.
It was amazing.
Which company did we acquire that was out in Colorado?
That was Eagle River.
Eagle River, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They had their office in Aspen or somewhere.
Most disappointed when that closed down.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get your trip.
I did get my trip there. It was amazing. They had a great work ethic. Like no one would turn up for work until noon every day. They'd all be snowboarding. There was a chairlift in the parking lot next to the building. And they come to work. The first thing they do is open up the grill outside and throw some hot dogs up there. I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Oh, the
What a
.com
great way
days.
to work
Yeah.
again,
Where was that? That was Aspen, right? Was it
That was,
Aspen?
no, it was
Vail. Vail.
it was
Vale. It was
Beaver,
Vale.
Beaver Creek and then Avon. But
Okay.
Beaver Creek, because Terry Gronke, who started Eagle River or ran it, whatever, he had like a condo in Beaver Creek. So that's why that office existed, because he's like, well, I want to have an office here. And so that's why it was. And then it was, I forget who the client was, but they were the ones that said, you've got to grow the office. And we couldn't grow in Beaver Creek. So we moved everyone to Avon, doubled the size of it. And then that was the company that called us in November of 99 and said, yeah, I know we committed to 20 million for next year, but it's probably going to be more like 100,000. That was the first moment where we were like, oh, bubble is hitting us, and that was that choice of, do you cut 10% of the staff globally or do you close down the office? We had just promised that office we weren't going to shut them down, and that call came in.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I remember those.
That's definitely one of the biggest things I remember in the 4 years from 97 to 2001. Online Magic itself was 10 people in New York.
Yeah.
I think there was, 40 or 50 in agency at the time?
Yep.
And then in somewhere in 2001, I remember 1,500 people in 9 countries, 4 continents or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, at the biggest, it was 2,200, more than 2,200 people. It was insane. And then we went from 2,200 down to 450 over 6 quarters, a year and a half. It was just like slash.
That was the death by 1,000 cuts. And then one day we just said, you know what, we can't keep doing this. So when we were down to 400, we said, we've got to get rid of 3. And it actually ended up being 350, because I think there was about 40 or 50 left by the time we were done. And that was that last hurrah at the full shilling where, everyone who was laid off, we just piled into the full shilling. There was about 200 of us in that night, I think, till 3 a.m. And then Tony and Laurence tried to go back to the office. That also used to happen when we were on
it used to happen when we were on 665, because people were jumping ship in the .com age so often.
Yeah.
So we'd all go and
meet. Yeah, you asked the so-and-so was leaving.
We'd go meet in the Astor, and eventually we had more people that had left there than were still there at the Astor. And then the full shilling. I remember that day Yeah, that was a bad day. March.
That was-
May, oh, how can I forget? May 14th.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it was literally the announcement was, you're going down to the Exchange Bar, you're going upstairs. And it was really weird. So then we all met in the Full Shilling anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what happened. You're right.
Yeah. Amazing. You know, I think, Laurence, there was another project. Were you involved with the Maritz work?
Yeah. So I
That
would
was the
make
other one,
frequent
right?
trips. Yeah, frequent trips to Kansas City, which was
Yeah.
never my favorite place,
Yeah.
right? But I worked on that. That was a tough customer, you know, and I actually remember, like, they would come and visit us occasionally in New York. We go and visit them more often, and I remember them coming and whining and dining them, going up to the top of the World Trade Center. You know, we got to show them around, but I never thought that we really made it work, and it was all around incentives, employee incentives, and how to roll things out. And we did it, but I just never felt that was we really delivered something that really worked for them. I don't know if anyone remembers the incident.
Incident?
Incident involving a
this
monitor.
is a very famous, Kyle. I don't think you remember this incident.
I don't know.
But yes,
Let me
come
hear
on,
it.
Laurence. You have to regale us with this incident, because it was
All right,
it was
in
most
this
talked
particular
about for a while.
incident, they had made their trip, and maybe it was St. Louis that they were based
Yeah,
in.
they
but
were in St. Louis. They were in St.
St.
Louis.
Louis,
Yeah.
They made a trip to New York, right? And it was to look at the latest round of designs, and they didn't like them. And I know that the particular person that had been working on these had put a lot of effort into them, and he didn't like their answer, that they didn't like them. And unfortunately, he picked up his monitor, which was one of those 17-inch, very heavy CRT monitors, and threw it at them.
No.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is this the one where somebody was gone postal?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Wow.
he just sorted out very fast. They never. I don't think
I
they.
remember.
Yeah, they never came back to New York after that, and I'm not sure they got to keep their business.
I remember seeing the postal and being escorted out because it was loud.
Yeah, those monitors are pretty big. Yeah.
Yeah, that incident was well known for a while,
Yeah,
and the individual, you know, was sort of well known for having those incidents. So
Somewhere else.
it was the first time somebody who didn't like a creative who didn't like a client's answer actually threw something at them. So that was
Wow.
quite interesting. Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be the same with a little kind of LED today, you know, just
No.
Yeah, no.
no impact. But
The vacuum tube smashing.
Yeah, you know, throwing your iPad at the client isn't going to work anymore, unfortunately. So.
even lifting
I
17
remember-
cornerstone monitor, they're heavy.
They were big. They were all that stuff was big back then. I remember we were pitching. It was a Procter and Gamble. It was some sort of, I don't know, like some sort of personalized product Procter and Gamble was doing, and it was a new creative person we had brought on, and so we brought them to the pitch, and then they stood up, and the first thing they said was, when I first saw this concept, I thought it was the dumbest thing I had ever seen. In a room full of like 17 people at Procter and Gamble, and you could see like the air just went out of the room, like all their faces just went boom. And I had to stand up and go, "Okay."
This is what we really thought.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Who remembers the Gucci work? Remember that when we started that Gucci.com?
Yeah, that was very pretty. I don't think I was so involved in that, but I remember
Yeah.
it really took a lot of attention, and I mean, that's a whole different level of creative standard that was needed there. So
Yeah.
So some of those projects were super high creative, and others were the more technical stuff. Well, so talk about, it's been like the reason this show exists is we had our 25th anniversary back in New York, whenever it was, and we're like, we're getting old, and these stories are fading quick, so we should maybe do this. So talk about what did you as you move from agency.com on and move forward, like, what did you carry forward from those days? What do you remember? What did you leave behind?
I think you did leave the sofa couch behind and
we left a few
bench,
dents
right?
and a few couches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Left my liver behind.
Yeah. It's
you go
on
back
the
and play
ear in. Yeah, Tony. You may want to go to the ear in.
I do swear that I was in the ear in, I don't know, last year. I think came up and saw Paul Fisher, and they've still got a rack of bills behind the bar gathering dust. I guarantee there's our bills in there somewhere. So it hasn't changed.
So yeah, so I didn't bring those with me. I left them behind the bar after leaving at 2 o'clock in the morning. But, yeah. So
one of the things that I get that from that time that we use it, and I saw some of your questions before, take for granted now. Is this the thing we're using now?
Yeah.
What was it called back then? We were WAP.
WAP.
WAP phones, but they were like those flip phones, and it was like a little screen, and you had to type with the keyboard.
Palm.
Right.
Remember when the Palm came out? Remember when the Palm came out?
Yeah.
And
I had one of those.
HT, all little, look at this thing. This is amazing. Bigger screen. But
it's only 20 years ago, and I know that CEO of our company says we are now in the age where we're competing with that thing. If it's not instant and if it's not available on that thing, forget it. Nobody's coming to you.
Yeah.
That's
just 20 years.
Yeah,
that's
fascinating.
Amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So what did you bring? I know you used Chan's meeting guideline quite a lot, Tony. What else?
There was a lot of stuff that we did before I worked here and I was a techie, I hated process.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely detested it because you don't want to be ruled. I was a creative.
You could have been a creative.
But I got my lesson when I moved into Online Magic, and Giles and Yost were in the same room as me, and I'm managing them. And you'd ask them to do something, and they were 20-something straight out of school. You'd ask them to do something, and 3 days later they said, "I didn't know where to start." I went, "You've done nothing for 3 days." And it made me realize you need some structure to work in.
Yeah.
So, working through putting project management together, then the next company I worked for, Mia actually came down and joined us. We actually put ISO in place for the whole company. So taking process forward. And now, the team back home now hate me because have you done your timesheets? And it's just, and it's making sure process is in place because you need some structure to work in. That's, yeah. So it's not so much project-based or technology-based, it's process-based for me.
Was there anything... Go on, Laurence, go on.
We kind of made light about the fact that we had a lot of extracurricular fun outside of the office, but a lot of this actually started in the office, right? We would have fun and we would celebrate. When these projects where people work day and night to get them in, and the pitches that we went to that were last minute working through the night.
Yeah.
We did celebrate, and it's important to take that forward, because I think that I've tried to do that in all of my jobs since agency. That's where I really kind of learned that you have to do that, because tomorrow you're going to be going through it all over again. So let's celebrate. Take the time to do it. We were good at that.
Yeah. That was a thing. It was like memorializing the milestone, right? And remember the big red button, Scott? I think it might have been maybe right around when you were there. Scott Major invented a big red button that launched the website, and it was all that sort of thing of take the moment, because it just continues on.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
And do you remember when we moved to Exchange Place, right? And we spent forever building the cafeteria up on the leisure area. Was it the 52nd floor?
50 something, yeah.
It only just got finished in time, for the end, really. But one of the things that we did, you remember on a Friday, we would crack a beer open. We'd have beer Fridays.
Yeah.
What time? 3 o'clock or something?
Remember when we got the Nintendo 64? And everyone would watch everyone play Mario 64.
Mario Kart, that's right. Yeah. James Plath James and Eric Porres. I vividly remember those two guys going at it on that game, and just competing bitterly against each other.
I remember I had a real insight about that, because it was the first time that I had seen a crowd gather around other people playing a video game. It was the beginning of esports, where they would be cheering for the other one, and that was amazing up there.
Yeah.
I remember an Australian man by the name of Tim Dargavel that had worked with us, and he would come to do the beers. And I forget what time we kind of cracked beers. I think it was maybe 4 o'clock.
No, 3 o'clock. 3
Was it 3?
o'clock.
What,
Those,
3?
those beers would start at 3 p.m. I remember that.
He was
Well,
counting.
Well, but this was actually, I said, you know, what a great company, because I think he just started work. I said, what a great company. You know, Friday, 3 o'clock, everyone gets beer. And he goes, well, that's because no one would be here after lunchtime if there weren't beer.
But it is funny how some of those cultural things that we did in those days are now the norm, right? You go work at Google, you know, there's cafeteria with free food, and, you know, you get the foosball tables and all of those things. But, you know, a lot of that stuff we pioneered very early on. And I remember joining a company, one of the PMs looked at me one day and says, you know, this is great. We get free lunch every day. It's fantastic. I'm like, yeah, because if you leave, it's going to cost me 2 hours of billable time that you could be, you know, putting to a project. That's why you're sitting here eating at your desk, you know.
Remember the menus being passed around, and yeah.
So,
I remember when Coke was no longer free, and the uproar. There was people were going to jump ship because the Coke was no longer free. Well, oh my God, people were growing.
That was something that I learned, that, you know, people would say, oh, we want this, we want that. The minute you gave them that was now the expectation. Like,
exactly.
Before is always, you can never take anything away. Anything you give them is no longer appreciated once it's given. Like, and that was always.
Remember, what was it? There was yoga. There was a masseuse that came in. You had to sign up. Remember that?
Friday afternoons, absolutely.
Friday afternoons.
Yeah.
Molly used to run Inspire You. Remember Molly Horton? She used to run Inspire You. Remember that?
Yeah.
So people were learning how to play the piano and the violin, and all sorts of craziness was going on.
Yeah.
But all pioneering stuff. We just made it up just to keep people engaged.
You're right. And you heard about it coming out of all the Silicon Valley companies afterwards, but that's where it all began.
Yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely incredible. What else, guys? What else? Are you still coding, guys, and working away? No.
I was telling Kyle before we started, the company I'm at now with Student Clearinghouse, the technology we're working on is what I used to develop before I even moved to America. That's how old it is. So I don't tell them I know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I could, and I'm going, oh my God, no. No, it's people direction and enabling them now for me.
Yeah. How important do you think the culture was? The culture we had was quite unique. Do you bring some of that stuff to your jobs now? Because I know I do still. I still do.
Right. Yes. I mean, as Laurence said, it's trying to bring the celebration to it, because you're right. Tomorrow you're right back in the thick of it again.
Yeah.
And you got to, but it's hard. It's really hard now with COVID. Yeah. Because you can't meet up. I mean, this is it. This is meeting over a webcam, and we've done some events over the webcam, silly games. We did one where we did a treasure hunt over Zoom, and got the team's kids involved, and just stupid household items, and that was pretty fun. Yeah, but it's tough now.
We did a Christmas party this year where it was a cookie decorating contest, and and it was
But it is, it's tough, right?
It really is tough. I was the Denver delegate for a London-Denver exchange program this year, and it was basically just a Zoom call with funny accents, so,
like this,
like this one,
exactly.
Yeah, I still get called Australian.
Yeah, right.
Regularly.
Yeah,
I don't know what you are.
I've heard it all. I mean, especially at Richmond, absolutely everything. So, I've been Dutch, I've been German, South African, Australia, New Zealand.
Dutch.
Dutch. I mean, there's a lot of help needed out there.
At that point.
Yeah, exactly. Had a few to drink. So
tell them you're from the mountains.
I think overall, you sort of realize, and one of the other reasons for doing this is some of the innovations that we created, like a music player for the web, right, for Sirius satellite radio. I mean, it's all Spotify and Pandora now, but imagine having to sit there, think about coding something that no one's ever thought of before.
Yep.
Right.
It was like, on the B18 with Ralph Seaman and creating a booking engine. Like this was way before Expedia and Travelocity and all of these guys.
Well, yeah, and it was systems that you couldn't query. Like now, there's all this.
It's all open APIs everywhere. APIs are everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
no code programming. Like you can build stuff. So nothing like that existed. It's like, well, this system not only doesn't talk to this system, it can't talk because the data structures are different, right? And it's like, okay, so what's the thing in the middle? I don't know. That's middleware, right?
Yeah. In those days, it wasn't really about having to think about who would maintain it and how long it would live on. It was about getting something out there really quickly and working and better than whoever the competitor was that we were trying to beat. And today that would be completely frowned upon. You know, it's great to put a pilot out there, but everything we did was basically like a beta or a pilot, right?
And the biggest thing was, the first thing I remember was working on The Economist and doing an awful lot of just static data, static pages.
Right.
It was the first company that could really make success of a dynamic website, truly changing to the who's doing what, when, where. And that was the big move. But now, I mean, I remember the talk of the time was, there's going to be an interactive fridge. And I'm thinking, are you joking? Why?
I still ask that question, I know.
You ask yourself, what do you handle that's electronic that isn't interactive?
Yeah.
The car is interactive.
Yeah.
The phone, everything you touch.
Even cars, your passion, Tony, of cars. I work with a shipping company. We're sort of digitizing them at the moment, and the guy was telling me cars have more technology in there, and they can be reset. You can change a car's configuration remotely.
Well, that's Tesla's making bank on that right now.
Right?
$10,000 upgrade comes down over the cloud. It's basically a laptop with wheels on it.
Exactly.
Just a couple of weeks ago, they opened a new Porsche dealership just up the road from us. So I don't know, the lady that was working there was clearly misled because she thought I was going to buy George a car. Silly lady. But anyway, she said, well, do you want it? Because it was new. She said, do you want to go and drive the new Macan? I went, absolutely. Let's go.
Why not?
So we did. And I'm not an electric car. I got a proper car. It's got an engine in it. But anyway, we drove it and it said 0 to 6. We looked it up, 0 to 60 in 3.8. Gave it a go and 3.8 it was. But it had a turbo button on it. And it makes noise like an engine.
No.
I'm going, why? Because it's an electric car, you've got to make it sound like a real car.
Oh my God!
People wanted to go vroom vroom.
It's a mobile computer.
It's
a mobile
exactly.
computer.
And that's your point. Everything is all connected together now. It's fascinating. But it's also frightening because if you remember your QA days, one of the things that you used to focus on, I remember vividly, was single point of failure, right?
Yep. Trying to find it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
and now stuff just fails. It's like, that doesn't work. I remember I reached out to Ben Jones, who was working at Google. I'm like, hey, this thing's screwed up in my email. And he goes, how much did you pay for it? Like the attitude is like, fails tough. Like you're not paying for it, so like, wait a minute. What happened to pride and work? No, that's not.
But I mean, now we're moving our whole company infrastructure, up to Amazon.
Yeah.
So you don't know where your data is, but you know you've got failover.
Yep.
You know you got backup. You know you got scalability.
And I know when CarMax's website went down yesterday, Azure had gone down across the entire world. So
yeah, exactly.
We love the cloud, don't we? We do. I mean, but even then, I remember back in the days of then, we'd come down to just north of DC, Beltsville. Because we came down for hosting, and basically hosting is pretty much the cloud. Just a computer in somebody else's backyard.
I don't know if it was you or if it was Daragon or somebody. Maybe it could have been Daragon who said there are, when we were talking to clients about, okay, where's this site going to live, right? He'd say, well, in the hosting world, there are really, really, really bad hosting companies, and then there are really bad hosting companies. So we'll pick a really bad one, not a really, really, really bad one for you.
For you?
Yeah.
You just keyed me on a phrase that was a Kyle phrase, and it was, "We've just got to suck least."
Yeah. Figure out what sucks. Don't do that.
The Kylism. Figure out what sucks and don't do it. Right? And I think
this is great. Listen, we need to. Desh has a day job. Apparently, he's got meetings. I don't know what that means.
Have fun with those meetings.
Yeah,
we never got into the stag night meeting, did we?
I know. Hey guys, this reminds me. We must get together. We have to get together in person when all this is over. So it's a delight to see you two. Good to see you.
All right.
Phone call on the
phone call on the camera. There you go. There's your point.
Yeah, exactly.
I just got a phone call on my camera. All right, gentlemen. Great to see you.
Great to see you guys.
Great catching up.